Hello and welcome back to Trust Me, I'm a Philosopher, where we talk about trust, what it is, why it matters, and how to build it. And as some of you will know from earlier videos, I am writing a book all about trust. Now in today's video, we're going to take a little bit of a turn, and we're actually going to set the trust stuff to one side for just a little bit, and talk about the nuts and bolts of how I actually get the writing done. Books are quite long things. How do we actually set about making progress? Well, I'm going to talk a bit about what works for me. That isn't necessarily to say that it'll work for you, but I'll try and give you some tips and insights into how I manage to keep my writing and research projects moving. So first, set yourself a mandatory minimum. Now for me, that's 300 words. Of course, that means that I will produce 1,500 words in a working week, which means that I'll get a shortish chapter done every month, 6,000 words to a chapter. And that means that over the course of a year, I will in fact finish a draft of the book, assuming that at some point I manage to get down to a little bit more extended periods of writing. But a book a year is not a bad output, and that just comes from being really strict and making sure I'm producing that amount of work each day. Second tip, and this one is crucial for me, finish before you need to. So what do I mean by that? Don't finish a great big burst of writing and then just stop. Actually stop writing when you still know what you're going to say next. So don't finish a thought, stop writing midway through a thought. And that way when you come back the next day, you actually already have a pretty good idea of what it is that you need to say next, a pretty good sense of what you need to write about that day. And that means you're straight away off to the races without having to go, oh, what am I going to write about? How am I going to make this make sense? Third, at the start of the day, just review the notes that you made at the end of that thought. Review where you'd got to and just remind yourself. This will take you like 20, 30 seconds. Just open back the Word document back up, have a little look at where you'd got to, remind yourself where that flow was, so that when you get back to it a little bit later on in the day, you've already been thinking about that material. You've already been background processing it. And you're not having to land back into the material cold on that day. And I think this is really, really important because sometimes I find myself squeezing in a few minutes of writing between meetings. Our meeting will finish early. I've got 5 minutes between that and the next meeting. If I can just duck straight back in and write 150, 200 words in that gap, because I've reviewed things at the start of the day, I'm flying. I've nearly hit my goal in 5 minutes, and that's such a boon for me to be able to be productive in that kind of way. And last but by no means least on the tip front, make sure that this happens every single day. In reality, the writing part isn't going to take you that long. If you can type well enough, so 40, 50 words a minute, then 300 words is what, 6, 7, 8 minutes? That's really not very long to actually need to spend writing to turn out a book every single year. And if you can't type that fast, then learn and practice. Now, my point is not that you can just sit down and smash it all out in 6 or 7 minutes and move on. The point is that the actual writing part really doesn't take that long. And the sorts of practice that I've tried to suggest, reviewing at the start of the day, finishing mid-thought, means that you're already doing the thinking that you need to do on the quiet, sneakily, before you're sitting down to actually do that writing part. Now, one thing I should stress is that what I've just described by way of a practice is not exciting. In fact, it's deeply, deeply dull, right? It's have a process, execute, turn out 300 words, simply keep on doing that, voila, a book falls out the end. You need to do some editing as well, but you get the general idea. And I think that this strikes people as really counterintuitive because I think we romanticize writing. In fact, I think we almost fetishize it sometimes. There is this idea that we've got to cut ourselves off from the world for days at a time, holding a cold flannel to our foreheads, and only then, in complete peace and tranquility, can genius strike us. Inspiration will be our muse, and we can finally make progress. But to be honest, I think that's an excuse. I think that's not reality. I don't know about anyone else. My job is complex. It has many different moving parts. I have a lot of different responsibilities. I cannot consistently and reliably carve out a day to sit down and write. So I have to find ways of making that work in a very structured, formulaic, and frankly boring to describe way. But it works and it's effective, and that's what matters. And so to be sure, turning it into the kind of daily task sucks the mystique out of it. And if you can find a mystique-y way to produce a book, then go for it. More power to you. I'm not telling you to do what I'm doing. But I do think that if writing is your job, then it makes sense to treat it as one. So become effective and become efficient. And I think the way that I've described it is exactly that. And now, of course, I've practiced, and you will need to practice doing this as well. I've got better at doing this the more I've practiced. And oddly enough, when you practice something, you get better at it. There's no way that you should expect to just go and try and do what I've just said, take to it like a duck to water, turn out your books and everything be absolutely fine. There is a reason that sports people, musicians, whatever, practice relentlessly. They drill things over and over and over. And it's because that's what makes you better. So if you practice this approach, a little bit of writing, hit your goals, make sure that things are moving, you will get better at it. And that will enable you as a writer to make more movement on your projects more reliably in small snatches of time. Okay. So that's it for today's video. A little bit off topic, I realise. I am very happy to update you all that I'm now at 6,000 words of the book on trust, which I'm absolutely fine with. I've had a lot of other things going on, including other research projects, other bits and pieces at work as well. So 6,000 words, perfectly acceptable start for me. And in future videos, I'll start talking a little bit about some of the content, how it's developing, how the arguments are going, and so on. But I hope that was useful for some people to just think through how to actually make progress in writing, which I think can sometimes seem pretty daunting. Okay, if you've enjoyed it, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, stay suitably productive and suitably trusting.